Hey there, this is Shane Cass with Stanton Residential and Keller Williams Central Oregon. Today I'm coming to you with some information about inventory. We measure inventory in the real estate market in terms of months. So, how many months it would take to sell everything that's on the market if no new listings were to come. Most of you are probably familiar with that, but just kind of wanted to explain that a little bit. Overall, what we're seeing is a pretty dramatic shift up in inventory, which is more of an opportunity for buyers. So I want to dive into that a little bit in the Bend, Redmond, Sisters, and La Pine area, basically Deschutes County, and and we of course can look into some of the other areas as well if you have specific questions about where you live. So in Bend, here's what we're seeing. In 2024, June of 2024, there was 1.5 months of inventory. Right now, there's 3.5 months. So we've seen a pretty dramatic shift up in inventory. The median sales price is still pretty high. This is going back to the earlier June Beacon report, is where I'm sourcing all this data from. Got a new Beacon report coming out in about a week, so be able to update these numbers and give you a little bit more insight into the new report and how that's impacting things here pretty shortly. But 1.5 to 3.5 in 2 years, so we're seeing more houses for sale, less buyers going after them. Technically, this is still what you would call a seller's market, but I would caution sellers to not think it's too much of a seller's market. What we're not seeing that we were still seeing a few years ago is like a lot of competitive offer situations. However, if you price your house right and present it really well, you might see some very strong activity in the first couple of weeks and sell it still pretty quickly. So I would call it a little bit more of like a balanced market that's leaning towards sellers, but if you don't nail it on the head when you first list, you're probably going to be looking at more of a buyer's market 60, 90 days in. So that's Bend for you. Taking a look at Redmond. Pretty similar, 1.5 months in June of 2024, 3 months right now in June of 2026. So still leaning towards sellers, but again, you really need to nail your price and presentation and make sure that you are, basically like 40% of the houses are selling within the first couple of weeks and the other 60% are taking a long time. Those 40% are kind of really impacting these numbers, kind of driving them down. For that other 60%, you're probably looking at sometimes taking 90, 120 days to sell. So it's still very important to kind of nail it. But yeah, that's where we're at in Redmond. You start to see things change as we go to Sisters. Sisters is a little bit more of, I would say, a neutral slash buyer's market right now. Median price of 725,000. 2 months of inventory 2 years ago. 5 months today. That's getting up there pretty high. So if you're in Sisters, you really need to make sure that you're paying attention to these numbers. You're thinking about selling. For buyers, different story. You have a lot of options. La Pine is where it's really getting into a solid buyer's market. 7 months of inventory right now versus 3 in June of 2024. So buyers have all the leverage right now in La Pine. $367,000 median sales price. All right, so what does this mean if you're a buyer specifically? What this really means is you have a lot of time to think, a lot of room to breathe. Median days on market is measured in weeks, not hours, not days. Take the time to sleep on your decision, run through full contractor walkthroughs, negotiate hard, get the terms you want, not just the price. It gives you a lot of options in La Pine because there is really a lot to choose from and there's not a ton of buyer activity right now. If you're a seller, basically you need to stand out in a high supply market. And I think this is true even in Bend and Redmond, even though the monthly inventory is a little bit lower in those two spots. But overpricing by even 3% now can be a fatal mistake, even in the hotter parts of Deschutes County. With inventory doubling, buyers will simply skip your listing if you're not fairly priced, and they'll go to the one that is, right? So again, the tale of two markets, which I've covered in other videos on my channel, a good like 38 to 40% of the listings in Redmond and Bend are selling within the first couple of weeks. Those are the ones that are well priced and very well presented. They look great and they're priced accordingly, and they're not going for like 2023 prices. If that's what you do when you launch, you're going to be in a very good position. It's going to still feel like more of a seller's market for you. But if you miss that by even like 3 to 5%, and you price yourself too high, price like it was 2022 or 2023, buyers are going to skip you, and you're not going to get that contract, and you're going to sit on the market for a long time, and you're going to have downward pressure on pricing from there. So another point here, hyper focus on condition. I've said it a few times. You can't just throw your house on the market as is. You've got to spruce it up, make it look nice. Or I guess you can do the as is if you price it accordingly, right? You're just not going to get as much for it. So yeah, that's about it. Any questions, you can always reach me on my website, my email, my phone number. Check out my other videos on my YouTube channel. Subscribe and like if you are into that. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.